Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Unfiltered AI Leadership with Newton's Tree. I'm so excited to have my guest here today. Adnan's joining us from Luma Health. He's founder and CEO, but I'm not going to take up time trying to summarize his resume. Adnan, thanks for joining us. Please introduce yourself to our crowd.
Yeah, well, Haris, thanks so much for having me. It's no secret. Any chance I get, any chance I get to hang with Haris, I do, because I always leave definitely a little bit smarter and always happier. So thanks for having me. Adnan Iqbal, one of the founders and the CEO here at Luma Health, and so I'm based here in the San Francisco Bay Area, where Luma is headquartered. Luma is your very classic, Silicon Valley venture-backed health tech startup. We've been fortunate to have been around for 11 years now, and we've grown from what was initially like a smart waitlist, solution. Before we use fancy words like the healthcare consumer and access, it was about getting patients to the right care with the right doctor quickly and making sure they keep coming back. So like scheduling was always our not only our founding, entry point, but also has been part of our core DNA ever since. And really, what we've grown up to become over the past 11 years is the healthcare AI operations platform, right? And the goal for us is our customers are the uh, healthcare delivery organizations. So think large hospitals, integrated delivery networks, health systems, clinic networks, etc. And our goal is to be their partner in helping them really own and automate and orchestrate that entire end-to-end consumer journey. So access, communications, readiness, patient financial
Mm.
experience, all those elements. And of course, as I'm sure we'll get into, Horace, to really be able to automate workflow for their people, like their staff, their teams, and to really get rid of the sludge, right? Like all that manual tax that exists and all the little handoffs, all the little touch points. That's who we are.
Amazing. And we'll have lots of time to get into how Lumo is tackling this problem for health systems. Well, I want to hear and get everyone else to hear a little bit about your personal journey.
Sure.
How did you end up leading a company like Luma Health? Like, what was the motivation? What's the history? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, Harris is gonna let me poke fun at myself. I have no business doing what I'm doing. Candidly, I'm a biologist by background, and in our family, I'm not even the real scientist. My wife is an actual scientist, a genetech, but I kind of have played one over the years. But really, my team teases me. I started off as an aquatic habitat specialist, so I used to study freshwater
Oh, I did
creeks.
not know that.
Yeah, that's where the journey began, and that's where the love of science has been, and then really that evolved to, um, I think part of it is just I live here in the San Francisco Bay Area. This is where I grew up. Uh, the whole a lot of the biotech ecosystem really started and was catalyzed here, and so I think it must have been in the water. But I started gravitating more and more towards really wanting to get deeper in biotechnology and bioscience. And so as part of that, having studied biology as undergrad, working for a few years, I actually moved across the pond and went to grad school at Cambridge, and I studied biotechnology and bioscience, and really my focus was on proteins. Proteins were my jam, primarily proteins in inflammatory disease and in oncology, and loved that experience. And oddly enough, I had to leave Silicon Valley, go to the UK, and that's where I first had my taste of entrepreneurship, and had a chance to co-found a medical device startup with one of my classmates. Kelly is and was a real biomedical engineer, and the two of us launched a medical device company that was focused on diagnosing tuberculosis. It was a little box, and it was meant
Yeah.
to be out in the
Did you
field.
launch
And
that in the UK?
we started in the UK, but it was primarily the initial
Yeah.
use cases were primarily in parts of Africa, right,
Yeah.
where it could be put into a backpack and taken out. But yeah, we did like the Cambridge University Entrepreneurs
Yeah.
Business Challenge, and we got like a 10,000 pound check. And then we were fortunate because this aligned with the WHO's priorities at the time, and they had a
Mm.
division called the Foundation for Innovative New Diagnostics, where we were grant funded for a lot of it, and we had access to a wide variety of stained TB slides that we were using to test our device and algorithm. Um, Phenomenal ascent, even for more phenomenal implosion. So that experience was fun, and I learned a ton. I was in my mid to late, sorry, mid-20s, and learned a ton. And I ended up moving back to California and really grew up as a biologist and as a healthcare professional at a large biotech company here in the San Francisco Bay Area called Genentech. And while I was there, Genentech was acquired by Roche, which is a massive multinational Swiss-based company. And so I learned a ton, and really, those were my late 20s, were very formative, where I had a chance to start on the operations and manufacturing side of biotech, where real biotech happens. So the stuff I used to do at my bench, and I had to scale to 10,000 liter tanks and pump out proteins that would become cancer therapies for patients. I had a chance to move over and lead Genentech's early stage R&D finance strategy, which in simple English meant I had to allocate about $1 billion across 40 molecules from research through phase 2. So I still got to wear my scientist hat, but most importantly, I got to learn the business. How do you invest in, prioritize, and progress a portfolio of molecules that will one day become therapies for patients and beneficial for them, of course, revenue generating for the organization. And then cool thing about Genentech was, and still very much is, they wanted you to get a broad feel for the business. So I'd seen operations and manufacturing, I'd seen R&D, seen finance. I hadn't seen the commercial side of the world, the sales and marketing side. And so I had a chance to move across the street to a different building and lead Genentech's market planning and sales and marketing strategy for immunology product that Genentech had on market. And this was really an eye-opening experience for me, because I came from oncology, from cancer, right? Hit the patient hard, hit them fast. Goal is to save and extend life. And I was now in immunology, which was chronic care. This was a treatment for rheumatoid arthritis, which impacts the joints. And people were living with this therapy for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. It became a part of their life. And for the first time, I really had to think about the patient at the center of everything we do. Because again, like in cancer, like the patient doesn't really make it, at least, this was 2008, 2015. The patient didn't really choose, right? If you had HER2 positive breast cancer, there were 2 treatments available, and they were both Genentech treatments. And the data said, 95% of the time they were efficacious. And so the physicians in the US made the decision to write the prescription. But again, the data said, these are the 2 best things. In the UK, and it was nice, we had to show, quality of life improvements. But again, the data said, like, this will improve your quality of life. And that particular type of cancer is, you can cure. And it's amazing. But immunology was different. This was the patient chose, because this is part of their life. Do I want to sit in an infusion chair? How frequently do I want to choose and sit in the future? Do I want oral therapy? This was a very competitive space, and so I really got to learn how do you fight for every 10th of a share point in a competitive market? How do you think of the consumer before we use like the words consumer, but how do we think about the healthcare consumer and how they make life decisions and which therapies they choose and what they're looking for beyond just it's going to make you better. And so that time at Genentech was really formative and led to, I think, a lot of our core DNA and how we think of things here at Luma. But after 5 years there, left, took a sabbatical, and decided to go back to school. You'll see a through line here, where if I could be a student every so often, I would love it. I think my wife has now cut me off because we have 2 little kids. She's like, "You're done going to school." But I went to business school and really had 2 things on my mind. One was to move from pure health care and life science, right, to where health and tech were coming together. This was a time where I can't find my phone, but every single one of us had a phone in our pocket. This is around 2014, 2015, and it wasn't really, technology really wasn't being used in healthcare. Now on the treatment side, rewriting medical textbooks, right? But on the delivery and operational side, like, not really being used. Phone was still the front door, right? And many can argue still is, but it was the only door at that time. And so I had that hypothesis, and I wanted to go from a massive company that was, Roche Genentech, just to something earlier. There was no desire to create my own company. I think that again was just fortuitous, where I was on campus at Stanford, where I reconnected with my old college roommate. So the Shveen, or Dr. Karam, was my roommate as undergrad at Berkeley. He went off to Michigan Medical School, trained there, practiced their radiology clinic there. And now, 12 years ago, he was at Stanford Hospital doing his fellowship in cardiac imaging, and I was finishing a business school. And that's where the 2 of us would nerd out about all the different pain points, challenges, and efficiencies in healthcare. And what's now Luma was born out of those conversations, at lunch at Stanford Hospital's cafeteria. And that campus makes it easy for students to play startup, and so we played startup. But there was that summer after we graduated, it was like, no, this is real. There's like 10 clinics using this, and this is a real problem that's real we experience it firsthand, me as a patient, Tasheen as a doctor, but it's true across the United States and it's true across the world. There's people waiting for care every single day, and there's care available every single day. There was no easy, simple way to make that connection happen. And that was the little nugget that we started off with early on.
That's a fantastic story, and almost like, particularly from my perspective across the pond, like a prototypical Valley story, especially towards the end on the Sanford campus. And the thing that also strikes me when you were explaining the Luma journeys, you started, and forgive me if I'm oversimplifying, as a relatively straightforward value proposition around
Absolutely.
waiting list management, right?
Absolutely.
And now have expanded to a full enterprise platform, right, where you're taking into account and supporting huge parts of the process and the patient journey. Um, is that still possible today? There's a real
Yeah.
challenge
Great
around
question.
whether, with the sort of vendor exhaustion, which is very real from a lot of CIOs and health systems, whether they have the capacity to entertain these sort of smaller and niche products. But I guess
Yeah.
without that, you couldn't have got your foot in the door.
No, it's a great question. And I think, yeah, this is probably true in a lot of different industries, but it's especially true in healthcare, is, um, you see trends kind of repeating themselves. And now, I got a
Yeah.
gray hair here, and we've been doing this 11 years here now at Luma. And so when we launched the company, one of the best pieces of advice we got, which I think is still super true today, is you can promise efficiencies, cost savings, health outcome benefit, experience benefit, happy people, happy staff, happy patients, all those things, happy providers. And that's great. But if you can deliver top line revenue growth, that's how you stick and that's how you win, right? You can do these things in parallel, but if you can do this first, that'll allow you to do the rest. Whereas if you only do one or two or three of those things and you're not driving meaningful increase in revenue, and in today's environment, also meaningful and tangible reductions in costs, like you're not gonna be able to succeed, right? Like it's a lot of companies get to 10, 15, 20 million ARR, and then
Mm,
they'll get stuck, right? And so that was advice we got early on. And I remember, this is Bob Kocher, who um, is an investor at Venrock, and happened to guest lecture as part of the only healthcare at the time course at the GSP at Stanford. He drilled this into me, and I remember I was talking to him about, before Luma was even called Luma, the idea, and it was a 45-minute meeting, and for 38 minutes, he pretty much told me like why I'm an idiot and why this will not work. In the last 7 minutes, he's like, "Hey, but you're onto something, because you're actually not only helping people get into care sooner, so they're on a better path or to an improved health outcome, but you're keeping the doctor's schedule full, and each of those slots is worth real money to them. And so they will prioritize in implementing this beyond all of the things that they have to implement." And so that stuck. Now, to your direct question, it's interesting. When we launched the company, there was this thesis in healthcare that we want the best in breed
mm,
solution, which meant best in breed point solution, right? And we were
yeah,
fighting against it. So we said, hey, look, like there's got to be a platform for this. But people wanted the best. They wanted the best messaging partner or vendor. Right? I hate the word vendor, but they wanted the best messaging vendor. They wanted the best clinical orchestrating vendor. They wanted the best payments vendor, the best scheduling vendor, right? And it was all bits and bobs of things. And it's on the right before the pandemic, the sentiment you articulated is what we would hear from health system CIOs, which is, I have vendor fatigue. You all say
yeah,
the same thing, and everyone is the best in. Someone's best in class, someone's best in Gartner, someone's best in whatever else they made up. But I don't have the bandwidth to understand what is truly best. And so the pendulum swung, right, where there was like, we want platform. And then, the pandemic, of course, happened, and that accelerated, I think, across the world, healthcare technology advancement and implementation, and people, choosing to making decisions, I should say, choosing who they wanted to partner with. It just probably accelerated at minimum 5 years, right? Things that would have sat in committee, but I would say probably closer to 10 years of advancement. And now you have folks saying, okay, I'm thinking I take a platform approach. And naturally, like, they have their core systems of record, their electronic health record, their call center system, their revenue cycle system, sometimes a CRM. But people were like, hey, if you're not going to work with my EHR, like, you're just noise, right? And that was winning our
yeah,
sales, because our strength has always been as the depth of integration into those systems of record, so that we can be the consumer-based system of action. And our goal wasn't, and this is credit to Aditya and Tashfeen and Marcelo, who had the product and platform vision, was, we'll start with the wait list and some communication, but really the goal is help a health system own and automate every single touch point along that patient consumer journey. And so our superpower has always been building hot new shit, and building it deeply. And that became what the market was pulling for. Is they wanted, who can check the box on as many different touch points, instead of me having the best of the best of the best of the best of. I need the solid and impactful one across with depth of integration that can truly automate things for my patients and staff. Now, I think what's funny is we're seeing the pendulum swing back, where you now have a proliferation of AI point solutions, right?
Mm,
And everyone has an agent. We all have agents. Like
yeah,
it's just just like the internet was a way of doing things. AI is a
yeah,
way of doing things. It's we should and could and must use it and build it into our products and platforms and offerings and capabilities. But what I'm hearing health system CIOs now say is, hey, like I have 101 different AI point solutions. I have the fax automation solution, the ambient listening solution, the scheduling solution, the coding and payments automation. Like everyone has an agent, right? I have a voice bot for my call center, like blah 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 blah. And so like again, we're seeing like people say, okay, and there's also a butt ton of money that's come into the space, right? One could argue too much money into the space. Because at the end of the day, like there's only so much Sam and Tam in the world. Now, okay, take all that off the board. I think we're seeing people are saying, okay, I don't want just the best agentic voice, just the best ambient listener, just the best coding or prior auth automation. I need someone who can offer me an end-to-end platform that's going to again work with the core pieces of technology that I have today. And of course, that's very relevant to I think the great work you all do at Newton's, right? Which is to provide that connectivity, to enable platforms, to enable better together for health system executives and users and decision makers who are overwhelmed again.
yeah, exactly. I sometimes
Hopefully that was
describe it
I
as
know
sort of
I gave you a long answer, but hopefully that was what you
no,
were
no,
looking
no. That was great. Yeah, and you got in a Newton's tree pitch at the end as well, which means it's perfect.
That wasn't orchestrated or coordinated. That's from
No,
the heart.
yeah, and spontaneous. The I want to yeah, talk about the sort of this advent of Gen AI, which is sort of, I guess, like the next revolution. I mean,
Sure.
you described pretty well how we went from sort of point solutions to platforms, and now it's about sort of AI enabled platforms.
Yes.
And but I'm going to ask you this question as a CEO, right? And
Yes.
looking at your internal processes, right? Where you would have expected to have a certain amount of capital expenditure, engineering workforce, yada, 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 to get certain solutions built, delivered, implemented into your customer delivering value.
Yeah.
Are you thinking about that process as a CEO differently now that
100%.
you have things like Claude Code and these other things? And how do you take advantage of those things whilst working in a regulated industry is what I really want to know.
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. Okay. So, uh, look, we're 250 plus people with employees across the United States, but also across the world. We're fortunate to serve healthcare delivery organizations here in the US, in Canada, in the UK, and we're expanding beyond that. And so the governance and compliance or regulatory element is always top of mind. It's not my favorite subject. Like I'd rather be building stuff and spending time with our customers and our partners, but it's something we have to think about, especially as we think about being a lasting company of scale, consequence, and impact that'll have global reach or broader reach than we have today. Okay, so that's the mission. We're not thinking about uh, using AI internally. We're doing and using AI internally because it's a must-have, right? And it's not limited to just our R&D engineering team using whether it's Cursor or Claude or other tools that they have access to. Part of it,
Mm,
it's like they have to always be tinkering, right? Because we should, Aditya, who's our other founder and our technical founder and the smarter and better looking one, he'll say, hey, we need to build more AI products, right? We need to have more AI in our existing products, right? We need to have AI workflows enabled across spectrum. And then internally, we have to be using more and more and more AI. And so if I think of our super users, our sales development representatives are some of the most sophisticated users of AI, right? Like they have seen their productivity probably increase by, I wouldn't say conservatively, 300 to 400%, right? Because they're able to do a lot of the things that used to take time. Um, Now they're able to have it at their fingertips by using an AI tool. And they're going to use different tools for different things, which is also really fun, right? Like, and they all kind of figure out, okay, I'm going to use Gemini for this and Claude for this and ChatGPT for this. Okay, great. Our marketing team, like our ability to develop thoughtful, impactful, relevant content, that's been accelerated, right? Our
Mm.
design teams, both our marketing design teams as well as our product design teams, their ability to prototype, get visuals in front of people so that they can react, iterate, that's accelerated. If I look at our customer success team, right, like they're able to automate a lot of their onboarding, training, learning tasks, right, that they do for the customer. They're able to build a lot of short form video content quickly themselves, as opposed to having to put in a request to
Yeah.
the customer marketing team. So the ability for people to and I think part of it is the culture and the type of folks, the amazing people we have here at Luma. They're self-starters. They want to be doing more themselves. They're always like, talk about like always be learning. um, they're doing that. They're learning, and then they're not waiting, for something, but they're using the tools. And no, we have a great infosec leader in Nick, and so he makes sure that we're not just randomly using tools left and right. Like if enough folks express interest in granola or Claude, right, that we get the appropriate licenses, that we build in the right infrastructure, that we have all the right security, compliance, all the things that people use it in the right way. And his trainings have gotten more sophisticated too. And the tests they use to make sure like employees don't get caught, right, by all the different bad actors out there have gotten more sophisticated, which is great. So what you're hearing from me is like in our implementation delivery team, like their ability to automate template
Yeah.
creation, all the things that took time, they're now able to do very, very quickly. So you're hearing from me like across the board, we have and will continue to adopt and deepen our use of AI, and as we should, right? Because the way software is developed now, I think is completely different. Companies that are founded today or yesterday, the way they build software is very different than the way we used to build software 10, 11 years ago. And so now we're building software in the same way. And you can, it's cute to say you have an AI product, but unless you're truly AI native, unless you're truly building software with like an AI first mentality, then you're already behind, right? And so for us, that's exciting. And we very much view it as an enabling technology, just the way work's going to get done. We have to use it thoughtfully. But I also think healthcare as an industry, which,
Mm.
it's funny because we in the US still keep the fax machine around. Um, Healthcare as an industry is one of the fastest adopters of AI, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just not me saying. Like, you could pick any analyst, any report. The McKinseys and the Deloittes of the world have all those all the data, but that's exciting, right? That this is an industry that again is usually been a tech laggard, which is actually one of the, is on the cusp of the early adoption wave. And so I think we're past AI as hype in healthcare. Now it's okay. Don't talk to me about AI. Don't talk to me about technology. Talk to me about, you understand my problems of today. You understand my problems of tomorrow. You understand my constraints as a business. Okay.
Yeah.
Now talk to me about solutions. And if AI is part of it, awesome. Then not just, that you thought about it the right way, but I'm looking for solutions.
Amazing. No, I completely agree. The other question I was going to ask was, how has it affected your decision making as a CEO? Given that you now have all of this creative capacity and capability, and then the second part to my question is what advice do you give to your health system partners and customers around the same?
Okay. There's two questions there. Okay. First one. I think one is, we've realized as a leadership team, and look, we're the first time founder, right? So there's a lot we do right, but there's a lot we don't do right, and we try to do more of what works and less of what doesn't. And so what's, I guess, fun is, it leans into our strengths, which is like speed to impact, right? So we make decisions now more regularly and more quickly. We measure, and it's easier to measure, and it's easier to iterate and tweak or turn right where needed. And so what I mean by that is, in practical terms, right? Like there's a very classic framework, the kind of OKR framework, right? And so for a long time,
Mm.
we used to use like a quarterly OKR goal setting. The Googles, the all the who's of Silicon Valley VCs, the Kleiner Perkins of the world, would say like OKRs are the way to do it. And I think there's a lot of value in it with OKRs. What I find today is it takes too long, right? So in that, a quarter is a long time. A lot can happen in a quarter. It's especially true for an early stage company, but it's also true as a grown up company, like us. Like a quarter is too long. Like you don't want two teams who start doing this, then one starts rowing over here because they have different or better or greater set of ambition, right? And they prioritize things that like are important, but not as important as what like what I want or what the company needs and what the business needs. And so that's where it's monthly, right? It's like monthly planning processes, monthly prioritization efforts. That's critical. And the technology and the tools we have allow for that speed, right? And they allow for the quick prototype test. Okay, go at speed and scale. And where the data says, that was not the right, that was not the right approach. Again, monthly is great because we haven't blown an entire quarter of teams spending time, resource, energy. It's happening on a monthly basis. It also means my leadership team, it's daily stand-ups, right? It's daily stand-ups to ensure that everyone's on the same page, and that we are prioritizing the right things. And look, I got this advice early on, and I remember I was like, man, that sounds kind of sucky. But here we are, 11 years later, 250 plus people. It's true. It's like there's a lot. My job is to, and a leader's job is there's a lot of repeating, and that's okay, because people will hear things and run with it, but you need them to hear it again and again and again and again. I need to hear it again and again and again to make sure we stay focused on the North Star that are the most important for the business, for the product, for the platform, and most importantly for our customers. Okay, you had
Fantastic.
a question in there. Advice for health systems.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, look, this isn't meant to be prickly, but I think it's the right thing. Uh, I think health system leaders have to think beyond their EHR, right? And I'm seeing that naturally happen, right? We see,
What does that mean? What does that mean? Think
yeah, yeah,
beyond
yeah.
the
Okay, what I
EHR.
mean by that is like, it's very there's a term often used which is like I'm my EHR first, right? I'm Epic first, I'm Oracle first, I'm Meditech, whatever. I'm my EHR first. Fine. And that's fine. Look, there's value in that, and there again, we talked about platform, we talked about the need for more consolidation, for platform system level thinking, also just the overhead, right? Which Haris, you teed up, like to manage like 101 different or even 5 different point solutions. It's just not it's not feasible or scalable. So there's a lot of value in platform level thinking, and the EHR, of course, is the core platform, right? One of the core platforms, but an important one. Good. Okay. Now, I think the shift that's happening is folks are moving from I am EHR first, and I am EHR only to, okay, I'm EHR first, but I need to solve business problems today, and I have to make sure that I can solve the business problems of tomorrow. And I
Mm,
will look at what my EHR offers. But if it's insufficient, I will not hesitate to find a partner that allows me to be better together. And so that's my advice to them. Again, look, part of it is selfish, right? Like we want to be one of their
yeah.
partners. But take out like, my Luma hat. And I would say that's just true across the space, right? Like there's really important business problems that have to be solved. I think health systems leaders themselves will realize, and I heard one of them articulate it very nicely recently, was like, hey, if we keep delivering the care we used to do for the past 100 years, we're not going to be in business for the next 10 years. And if you
Yeah.
read like the headlines and the details right behind the headlines, it's true, right? The business models and the margins, uh, and the reimbursement pressures in the US, but across the world, right? Like there's just not enough dollars to
Yeah.
pay for healthcare and the healthcare demand of today and the healthcare demand that's coming. Okay, so that's where us as technologists like should get really excited, and where I'm seeing real impact, real change. Again, take away the Luma hat, but like health systems, clinics, hospital groups that are doing things differently, the ones that are doing things differently, the ones that are able to show ROI, right? Both from a revenue standpoint, a savings standpoint, workforce productivity standpoint, workforce retention standpoint, from a customer standpoint, it's because they're thinking about better together with the EHR, right? They're not just limited to what comes out of the box. Um, and look, my message to the EHRs is like, dude, get out of the way, right? Like you have a part to play, but in a world where uh, selfishly, you as a EHR need health care and clinics and hospitals and health systems to thrive so that you have a lasting business. You have to enable innovation and change. Otherwise, that business model will be completely disrupted. Like it's not unreasonable to think like that you can get care without having to go to a clinic, right? Like that's not so far away anymore. And I know we've seen versions of that experiment in the past, but like in a world where there's literally not enough doctors, um, like if I'm the HR, I'm thinking very, very hard, taking a hard look at it, and not just like printing bills and
Yeah.
and celebrating wins, but like what does the next decade beyond look like? Um, or am I just going to become a data source with a bunch of clinical information in it?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I inevitably have similar conversations with health system folk, and the thing that I always say to them is that you need to design for agility, right?
Yes.
In this
Yes.
sort of world, things are changing. Financial sustainability is a stretch, or like you said, every health system globally, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that EHRs don't give you is agility, right? So then,
Totally.
what's your strategy to move
Totally.
fast?
Totally.
Um, the the thing that I want to touch on is the point that you made towards the end, which was redesigning care pathways. Because ultimately,
Yeah.
in order for all health systems to achieve some kind of financial sustainability, we have to change our models of delivery of care,
For
right?
sure.
And like as you know, I spent my entire career in the NHS in
Yeah.
one of the oldest hospitals in the country, in St. Thomas's, which is a 1,000-year-old hospital, right? So I know what doing it the old-fashioned way looks like.
Yeah.
Um, I guess with your Luma hat on, what could that future look like, and what role do you envision Luma playing in some of those different models of care?
Yeah. Good question. Oh, that's a big question. We could probably spend an hour on it, Haris. Um,
Yes.
Look, I think in the immediate term, uh, healthcare can no longer cut their costs. They can't cost cut their way out of it, right?
Hmm.
Like that's like if you go to whenever there's challenge in healthcare, we're going to cut costs. Okay, we're going to get rid of, I'm like not picking on anyone, but if I'm Providence, right? Like, okay, I'm going to get rid of all like middle level management, right? I'm going to consolidate certain hospitals. If I'm Ascension, I sold a bunch of hospitals and the less profitable hospitals or the less desirable for whatever reason, right? And now I'm showing cash flow positive. Okay, great, right? If I'm a smaller clinic, right, and I see pressures because the insurance company is squeezing me, my vendors are squeezing me. Okay, I'm gonna tell my front office staff, like, that old position, you're not gonna get it. So I need you to do more with what you've got, right? And so that's when healthcare is like go to is like, we'll cut some costs, we'll cut costs, and we'll get there, right? And I think we're at a place now where like you actually can't cut costs anymore, because if you now start cutting costs beyond where you are, you'll impact the product, right?
Yeah.
And uh, one of our customers is a very large academic medical center, and they say we have the best product, like full stop. We know that the customer knows that, but we made it so hard for people to access. When I use it, they don't even use the word access. They're like, we've built a fortress around someone's ability to get to our fantastic product. And a lot of that is driven because of cost cutting, right? Like, we haven't invested in new technologies. We can't even staff our call center to field the inbound phone,
Mm,
right? We can't hire enough GI doctors, even though we know there's a 6-month backlog for colonoscopies. And that's all because of the cost pressures on us. Okay, well, then how do we make sure that that great product stays great and that people can get to it easily? And like, margin equals mission, and that's true across every version of healthcare. Like, if you don't have margin, if you're not a good business, you can't deliver the mission, which is ultimately the product, but a phenomenal health outcome, and ideally alongside of it, a great experience. And so, I think that's where you're seeing the models are shifting, right? People are thinking about like, how do we, in a world with insurance companies and the government, right? Governments will pay us less for what we do, where the cost of recruiting physicians and nurses will only continue to increase because there'll be more demand than there is supply. How do we think about it differently? So you see different workforce schemes, right, to get people from high school and colleges
mm,
to learn more about healthcare earlier. Okay, good. Um, but you're seeing new revenue streams. It's like, how do we think about, and look, this isn't my words, but I think it's impactful. It's like moving from sick care to actually healthy care, right? Because there's all these touch points, which I mean, I'm sure on your Instagram or TikTok, you get like 101 different messaging around like ways for you as a consumer to own your own health,
yeah.
right? Be it a function, a superpower, be it some of the scanning capabilities that are available, right? Like, we as consumers just are paying for more and more, and I think that will continue. But with that, we as a consumer then will demand more, like we do from every other industry in our life that we have to pay for, right? And so that's what the opportunity is. Now, that's going to require technology. And again, take my Luma hat off, because obviously we benefit from being a technology company. That's for all of us as like health tech nerds and health tech companies. It's not just about the revenue growth and the number of users and usage and workflows and all the things that we quantify to show like we're winning,
Mm,
right? But at the end of the day, like, just like, um, humanity, like, humans need technology to really work here. because like I said, there's one, not enough just money to fund healthcare. And then two, there's not enough providers. It's true across in the US, but in the UK, all across the world. Okay, so that has
Yeah.
to change. Where how do you get more people to the right care quickly? Which again, like I open with when I talk about why we started Luma, but technology can enable that, right? And technology can enable it in different forms. Like every provider I know today who's in medical school or recently come out of medical school, they love the AI tools they have. They love open evidence. They love the ambient listeners they have. They know that their patients are now not consulting Dr. Google. They used to hate Dr. Google, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but they know that their patients have ChatGPT in there or whatever in their pocket. And the patient actually coming well informed and have uploaded some data, some labs, their diet, their exercise, or lack of exercise, whatever into it. And they're coming to the provider with actually thoughtful questions and a care, or even like the early versions of care plan that the provider can then use to guide. And so if we go back to the example of like Walmart in the US, right? I think the stat is, don't quote me on it, but it's like 85% of Americans live within 5 miles of a Walmart. And I think Walmart Health, like that reach, no one could have touched. I think they were early, right? Where they couldn't deliver that product in a cost effective manner. I think in a tech enabled world where there's far more competition, where primary care, healthy care, full wellness is happening,
Mm.
not in a big hospital where you got to drive to it for 2 hours and sit in traffic and then go to the doctor and then go back and the doctor's playing golf today, so we're gonna have you see someone else, right? Like that sucks, right? But if I can just go to uh, somewhere in healthcare, be it in the comfort of my home or close to where I shop, and get actual full wellness, right? That's tech enabled in all the ways, both in terms of what I have in my pocket, but also what the provider and the care team are using. And it doesn't have to be a fully staffed, expensive doctor. It could be, a different type of caregiver. There's a lot of power to that. And I think we'll see more and more of that. Like we know the most expensive hotel room in the world is a hospital bed in the United States, right?
Yeah.
And so that's gonna change because that's just not a sustainable proposition. And I don't think it's gonna value-based care took like, I don't know, 3 or 4 decades, maybe not 4, 3 decades to go from a buzzword to like, okay, now actually people structure contracts that way. I think this will happen far faster. And I get excited about that because we get to play a part of it, right? And the uh,
Yeah.
uh, more AI we built in our product, the more AI products we have, the more workflows we're automating, it really enables that, whether that's today a big academic medical center or a fancy dermatology clinic or ophthalmology clinic or a county hospital or an FQHC, delivering care to like how that changes, right? Like the sites may change, who the providers work for may change, where we get our healthcare will absolutely change, but you still need that core set of operating systems to make that a reality. That's what I get excited about.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And like you say, I think that the timing for that kind of future feels a lot closer now.
Mhm.
The
The last thing I'll
around the
share there,
last
Lars, is, you
oh,
and
go
I
on.
are products of well-established health systems, right, in the UK and the US. I
Yeah,
think we can also look at what's happening in other parts of the world where they're not
yeah,
gonna they're not gonna take the road of like, let me use a
yes,
health in
yeah,
electronic health records built in the 1980s, right, or whatever. Like they're taking a cloud first, an AI first, a many cases an open source first, right? Because like and with the constraints and the limitations that those you can't even call them health systems in many countries, but they're emerging uh, care delivery mechanisms. There's going to be cool. I mean, we already see it in India, right? Like things that are happening very differently there. We see it in parts of Asia. We absolutely see it in parts of Africa, right? Where um, there's novel ways of how people consume, access, pay for care. But what's true underneath it is there's technology that's making a lot of it happen. And in many of those cases, it's not the EHR, right? It's other technology that makes it happen, which I get excited about because I want to be that technology that at the end of the day, just for like personal, meaning, helps more people get to the right care, the right doctor quickly, and more care wherever they can, and the right type of care, and the care that's again healthy care, not just sick care. And so wherever we get to be a part of that, I get excited. But yeah, there's things for us to learn from other places.
oh yeah, completely true. I always think about this paradox, particularly in the UK, of early investment and how it then weighs you down. Right, we still have Victorian era railways that mean that we can't have modern trains because our tracks are not wide enough, and the
Totally.
same thing with our health system and technology infrastructure. The with effective innovation, particularly in something like healthcare, education comes hand in hand for it to be successful.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I don't think, and I think you'll agree, we did a great job when it came to the EHRs and digital medicine in general.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we invested enough in education so that people could use these things effectively, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that's going to be even more important with AI, right? Because it's a much more complicated technology. In some ways less intuitive. In some ways, it's more intuitive. And so
Mhm.
when you're having customer conversations, or with prospects or potential partners, what are often the sort of knowledge gaps and barriers that you're ending up filling people in around?
Yeah, great question. Look, I think our approach has been, people want their jobs to be easier, right? And they
Mm,
want to spend time on where they find some meaning and purpose, right? Or whatever they define as fun. I mean, work is work at the end of the day. Work is not
yes,
just
yeah,
fun, right? But our end users are super users, right? Think referral coordinators, scheduling staff, nursing care coordinators, triage teams, um, obviously the IT and revenue cycle folks, um, call center folks. Um, they have hard jobs, right? And we know healthcare is a hard place right now to not just attract, but even more so to retain talent. And so our goal always is, how do we just make this person's job easier? That requires training, most certainly. We found short form video content is great because it's punchy. And inserting at the right time is really, really helpful. Having someone sit through like a train the trainer, like after 10 minutes, like, eyes roll back and they're missing most of it. Um, but having short form video training and showing them how this will make their job easier. Most cases, people don't care about the why behind it. Like, is it AI? Is it not AI? Like, well, there's people in the health system, in our customers, who have to think about that. We think about that, right, in terms of governance, security, compliance, and all the risk and etc. But an everyday super user comes to like, is my job going to be easier? I mean, we know providers today um, use off the shelf AI tools, right? They're not thinking about like, is this compliant? Like, where's
mm,
the patient risk? Like, they're like, no, I got 50 patients I got to see, and I got to get this done, and I want to be present, right? I want to be present in the
yeah,
room with the patient, and so yeah, I'm going to use technology, right? I'm a psychiatrist, and I want the patients to have a phone number to call if they need, but I don't want to give them my phone number, so I'm
yeah,
going to get a Google Voice phone number, right? And I'm gonna let them call it, and I'm gonna take all those voicemails and shove it into ChatGPT and have it summarize everything for me and flag where there's risk. Like, I mean, people are people, right? Like, and I might be giving you like extreme examples, but I don't think they're extreme. I think like
no,
people are already using the technology. Okay, so let's let them use more of it, and in a way that they can understand it and use it without having to actually need a lot of training, without having to like worry about the knowledge gap. Because I think one of the things actually AI tools do great is like, it allows you to do more without having to learn more, right? It requires you to like obviously change the way you do work. But if you're like, well, I have a couple more hours, or I get to spend those couple more hours doing things that I enjoy or find real meaning and purpose and value in, that's a win for everyone.
That's great. And just conscious that we're coming up to the hour, I
Mm,
want to touch on internationalization,
yeah,
because that's something we both have in common. So
for
Newton's
sure.
Tree recently expanded into the US from the UK,
Yeah,
and you're coming in the other direction, out of the US. And the first question is like, what have you learned in sort of like the foray into other health economies,
yeah.
understanding the different way care gets delivered and reimbursed, and how has that affected or not affected decision making at Luma?
Yeah, good question. Okay, so I think, well, fun, cheeky observation is, uh, the fax machine is very much a US problem. There's no fax machine in the UK, and there's no fax machine in Canada. There's definitely no fax machine in parts of the Middle East, or where we'll likely
Yes.
expand next. So that's very much a US problem, which yay for us. Um, but again, hopefully a more thoughtful answer is, and I think part of this is like the place we play, right? Which is like, we've always been uh, building essentially the healthcare operations and automation platform, right? So the healthcare AI ops platform, right? Okay, so that need It's true anywhere in the world, right? Like, again, we use fancy words like access. Access is still a challenge in every single part of the world. It's true in the US, it's true in Canada, it's true in the UK, it's true in Australia and New Zealand, it's true in the Middle East. Now, the sub bullets under access can be different, right? Could be, oh, we don't have the right type of providers, or we have a lot of this type of demand, or we have structural challenges, right? Like insert NHS, insert government funded healthcare, right? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But the core problem is the same. And the desire to, again, allow people to own more of their healthcare journey, be able to get into the right type of care quickly and keep coming back. That's a shared sentiment across geographies. The desire to have more workflow automation and technology that works with whatever the underlying system of record is. Now, that doesn't mean the EHR everywhere. Some places that could be, homegrown database, a Microsoft Dynamics database, whatever it is, right? Like that sentiment is true. How they buy is different. That's where I'd say our greatest set of learnings has been. Oh, also like the desire for multilingual, omni-channel, context-aware, agentic, like all that's true everywhere. But the last bit is like, okay, how do they purchase? Then what technology do people use? Like obviously the last mile in the United States is, and in the UK too, is text, right? It's just like, text is best. But that's not, I mean, in certain communities in the United States and definitely in certain communities in the UK, like WhatsApp is actually the way to do it. Outside in areas like the Middle East, like it's WhatsApp all day. Nobody texts, right? So, okay, the last mile change is fine, but really it's how people buy is different, right? And that's where our set of greatest learnings has been, right? Like in Canada, it's a provincial decision, right? Each province has a fair amount of autonomy. What British Columbia does can be very different than what the province of Ontario does, and they have different priorities, different needs, right? Which is great. So that's been a learning. In the UK, of course, the NHS is going through a significant amount of change, but there's a real focus on workflow automation, hard savings, right? Again, to make the math.
Mm.
You contrast that to like the private hospitals in the UK, they're very much looking to deliver a consumer grade experience. It has a shop click pay feel to it, right? So those are some
Yeah.
of the nuances we've learned. In the Middle East, often you're dealing with the public health ministry that's thinking about care for that entire country, right? Because the countries are often the size of a city state or multiple city states. So uh, that's where like our experience working with integrated delivery networks in the US who operate, 40, 50 hospitals across 10 plus states. That's where they're like, oh, like I need to learn more about that and I want to copy what works from that and not repeat the mistakes of that, right? So that's just some of the geographical nuance of how they purchase, how they deploy, what the priorities are. But again, the most important top three things are the same, right? In terms of like access, automation, using technology to deliver that, and then of course to be able to deliver more care, right? Just full stop.
Yeah, no, amazing. We get a mix of people that listen into this show is a mix of sort of health system leaders and then some innovators. So
Yeah.
just as a sort of a last comment from you, um, what does the future look like for Luma Health? Like, where are we headed?
Oh, oof. All right. You want the commercial? No, I'm kidding. Um,
Yes.
Okay, it come back to where I started with. Like, I think what the market is pulling for and demanding is a healthcare AI operations platform, right? And that's beyond the EHR, that's beyond the call center, that's beyond the revenue cycle, that's beyond the CRM. So I get excited about that. I think like in the US and in other parts of the world too, where patients pay for their healthcare themselves, there's a lot to be done on the patient financial experience, right? And so what's next? Like I would love to be able to look, truthfully, we're not going to go build the revenue cycle company ourselves, right? We shouldn't do that. But could we partner with the right ones? Could we acquire the right ones? That to me is interesting because like in the United States, but again, in many, many parts of the world, as we're paying for more and more of our healthcare, and there's a real set of financial anxiety often that actually then I Banner Health, which is one of our customers and partners, they have data on this. They show that the financial anxiety then impacts the health outcome, right? And that people now are Americans, but across the world, are making health decisions not just based on healthcare need, right? But they're making health decisions on cost, convenience, and then need, right? And so
Mm.
I get really excited about automating more on the patient financial experience to make that stronger, more robust, to more shop, click, pay like we have in every other part of our life. And then, of course, when you integrate it into all those different touch points that we're really, really good at, there's a lot of power there. The other thing I get really excited about is more the clinical orchestration, right? There's a lot of very candidly expensive people, nurses, care team members, providers often, who are doing really manual things, and that's just moving paper around because all these queues, right, of things that have to happen before the next thing happens, before the next thing happens. And so I think for the longest time, you had companies who had the right intention, right, who were really focused on, uh, I think it used to be called like care pathways and care orchestration. And they all
Yes.
kind of got to about 15, 20 million in ARR and they kind of went to shit, right? And I think truthfully, they're just too early, right? But now there's an opportunity, most certainly. Um, and obviously, our enabling technology with AI makes a lot of it easier. And when you marry it into like, a healthcare operations platform, and when you lead with access, and like people keep coming back to care, but it's now well coordinated from a clinical standpoint, and you can do it with fewer people and automate a lot of just like the internal sludge. That's really, really exciting. Um, no, I think there's gonna be consolidation, right? Like, I think all those ambient listing companies that have been growing like gangbusters, they're all thinking, "Okay, what's next?" So naturally, coding and billing is where they go. But there's gonna be a next and a next and a next, right? We're thinking about, okay, we're now the healthcare access and operations solution. Great. Like, but how do you expand that? How do you automate more and more and more? So what's next? What's next? What's next? You have an entire crop of incredibly well-funded AI point solutions, right? That are focused on healthcare. Okay, a lot of them are going to go to shit like that. And I'm not picking on anyone, but we've seen that, that trend and the pendulum happen before.
Mm.
But the ones that, do that are successful, they're going to want to do more and more and more. Like, what does more mean for them? Is it they're going to go in deeper into referral workflows or the marketing buyer, or, also people thinking about like who are the other decision makers and buyers. Um, but they're going to go more into rev cycle. So like, there's so much to do, but there's going to be more consolidation, which I think is good as long as that consolidation is happening outside of the EHR, right? Because it's going to then also create additional platforms that can drive innovation and compete with the EHR, right? For things that the EHR is not good at. Like the EHR really shouldn't be in the business of scheduling, right? Like they're just okay at it at best, right? Like you can't be a solution for 100% of the customers when you are the patient record. But people need both. So that's what I get excited about. I think that's where we see our future. And I think that's critical, right? For us to expand our footprint as that healthcare operations platform, is to own in more and more and more and more touch points. That allows us to become that lasting company of scale, impact, and consequence that I refer to, and to really enable like healthy care as opposed to sick care.
Amazing. And then future looks bright. Thank you so much. You've been so generous with your
Of
time.
course.
It's not the first time that we spoke, but every time I learned so much. And thank you everyone else for listening as well. Until next
Awesome.
time.
All right. It's always a pleasure. See you guys.